Recently, an American flight gave some major final destination feels. A woman claimed to see someone who wasn't there. She insisted that she saw an invisible passenger and she had a meltdown. Here's the report.
Have you watched the hit sitcom Friends? If you have, you may remember this scene from the series. It is where Rachel has boarded a plane, but her friend Phoebe wants to stop her. So she tells Rachel how the plane's left phalange is broken, causing panic among fellow passengers. Now the thing is, phalange is not a plane part. In fact, it is the name of a bone. But people didn't know that. So their fear was real. And while this is fiction, a similar incident was witnessed recently in real life. Not with a plane part, but with an imaginary passenger. A woman on an American airline had an in-flight freakout. She said she saw a passenger who was not real. She claimed to see someone no one else could, and ended up creating quite the scene during her expletive-laden meltdown. And because this is 2023, her actions were captured on a TikTok video that went viral. The video showed her saying, and I quote, "You can sit on this plane and die, but I'm not going to." Right after which, she stormed out of the plane. Meanwhile, other passengers just seemed confused. They kept trying to turn around to observe her source of concern. But confusion held supreme, because no one else was there. And this entire ordeal cost them all a delay of 3 hours, because all passengers were forced to leave the plane before reboarding. Now, this entire incident gave major Final Destination vibes. But despite the woman cussing up a storm, the flight didn't face any life-threatening turbulence.
They say every dog has its day, but sometimes so could a human. It seems like the dog days are only beginning for this Japanese man. Yes, that is a man, not a collie. A Japanese native has transformed himself into a dog. No, he doesn't possess shape-shifting abilities. He is wearing a custom-made collie costume, worth over a whopping $14,000. It took 40 days to create this costume. The man had a lifelong dream of becoming an animal. He actualized it by donning this costume and made his doggy debut recently. Instantly, he went viral. His video has garnered over 5 million views, and he has made headlines globally. He is seen frolicking on the lawn, playing fetch, and rolling around. But while some are proudly transforming into an animal, others are aggressively denying they ever did. This news comes from Japan's neighbor, China, where a zoo is refusing to grin and bear it. Recently, a video went viral. A zoo bear was seen standing on his hind legs. Soon, wild allegations began erupting. People claimed that the bear was actually a man dressed in a costume, pointing to the way he was standing over a prolonged period, moving his hand in a fashion that looked like he was waving. People also noticed his slender legs and folds of fur, which made it look like the bear was a human in disguise. People could barely believe that it's real. Pardon the pun. The claims spread like wildfire, and now officials have been forced to make a statement. They have said that it isn't a human in a costume. They added that this breed of bears, called sun bears, come from Malaysia, and they are smaller than other bears. They have a different appearance, but they are just as real. Sounds pretty logical, but many refuse to believe the authorities. After all, other Chinese zoos have been accused of misleading guests in the past, and the allegations are wide-ranging, including dyeing dogs to look like wolves and painting donkeys to look like zebras. That last bit sounds a bit far-fetched, but if it isn't, serious points for creativity.
For our first story, let's talk about fatherhood. Fatherhood is tough, but do you know what's more tough? Fathering 500 children and then being taken to court over it. Here's our report.
Too much of anything is good for nothing. This is a popular phrase. You must have heard of it. It applies to a number of things: junk food, alcohol, even sleep. Do you know what else it applies to? Sperm donation. Something that's seen as a boon for many can also become a societal problem. How is that? Because we're talking about serial sperm donors. Yes, it's a real thing. Take this news for example. This week, a Dutch man has been hauled to court and he has been forbidden from donating any more sperm because he has fathered about 550 children. Yes, 550. And these donor children are not all Dutch. The sperm donor has gone international. Pitbull would be proud. This Dutchman was under fire after donating about 100 children, so he found a way out. He began donating his sperm to clinics abroad. And this has become a real problem. So he's under fire again. And now he can't donate any more sperm. He has received a court order. If he does continue to donate, he could be fined $110,000 per infraction. He's also been asked to contact clinics and get his sperm destroyed. Sperm destruction. This sounds serious, right? But what's the fuss about? Because fathering so many children violates the right to a private life. The donor children and their parents say so. They're afraid of accidental incest. Yes, this sounds a little funny, but it's a valid problem. Think about it. The Netherlands is a small country. It's home to about 17 million people, and sperm donor children rarely know about their half-siblings, especially when there are hundreds of them. So the more half-siblings there are, the greater the odds of them meeting accidentally and producing children of their own. This is incestuous and carries risks, mainly of hereditary defects in children of their own. And this problem is only becoming bigger and wider. The first child of in vitro fertilization was born in 1978. Since then, sperm donation has become a booming global business, which is okay. But the problem is, the industry is vastly unregulated. The laws are patchy, and they can't fully regulate who can donate, where, and how often. And countries have their own limit on how many children sperm donors can produce. Like in Germany, the number is 15. In the UK, it's 10. In the Netherlands, it's 25. But sperm donors often surpass these rules, and the result? 550 children from one donor. So it's not just sperm donation that's out of control, it's also what comes after. And all this is thanks to online dating. There have been reported cases of half-siblings meeting on dates after matching on apps like Tinder. Imagine finally meeting someone who doesn't have a single red flag. You have so many things to talk about, so much in common. Ever wondered why that is? What if the person is literally your half-sibling? Now that's what a bad date sounds like. Because sometimes the real red flags are the ones that show you the mirror. Ye faithful, lend us your ears, for the Pope has stripped out. Yep, you heard us. Don't get us wrong. Papa Regalia has always been intriguing. It depends on how you look at it. He can seem like a holy version of Gandalf, someone who walks the earth in a white robe and a matching hat. Sometimes he's like Batman, greeting those who gather to see him in a Pope-mobile. The swagger has always been there. But we're sure that if Il Papa asks, his outfit can surely go all the way. And we're talking about some big changes. Let's come to the Pontiff. Recently, some photos of the Pope surfaced on the internet. He's seen sporting a long white and, if we may say so, a very trendy looking puffer coat. His pectoral cross has been replaced with some major bling. And for all the Soho hopping millennials trying to steal this look, it seems to have come straight out of Balenciaga and Rick Owens' runway. So obviously these pictures went viral. The world was tripping, much like the person who created them. These pictures are AI-generated deepfakes, made by a construction worker who claims he was on shrooms when he did this. And these deepfakes fooled a lot of people. Some were furious, while others had a good laugh. Some wondered if the papal drip needs an exorcism. And remember, this is during the same week as the Trump deepfakes. A few days ago, the internet was full of AI-generated images of cops accosting former President Donald Trump. Coincidentally, images in both cases were created using the same generative AI program. And this is not the first or last time deepfakes have fooled the world. Remember a very drunk Nancy Pelosi? That 2019 video was a deepfake. And Mark Zuckerberg's fake announcement about Facebook ads also in 2019? What about Macron at the heart of the French protests? The power of AI is becoming too obvious. What's even more obvious is how easily it can be used to create propaganda, or how it can be weaponized to destabilize society. But with the right guardrails in place, looking at you governments, it can also be a weapon of mass fun. Think about hyper-realistic cartoons or realistic fantasy fashion statements. AI's use is certainly alarming, but that does not take away from something else it's very good at, depicting things that aren't real. In other words, art. Because we already have a few ideas. Star Wars Episode 4, a new Pope? What about Pope in Crocs, the original holy shoes? And what about a ninja Pope? He could be a blessing in disguise.
Our first story comes to you from a Spanish island, where a flight was delayed for an odd reason. It was too heavy to take off, so instead, passengers were asked to disembark. Here's our report.
Taking a flight can be a nuisance, with loudly munching fellow passengers or someone long legs who keeps hitting your chair from behind. Even worse, when someone next to you just would not stop talking. But if these instances seem bad, wait for what we're about to tell you. The incident happened on an EasyJet flight, and it made headlines everywhere. The flight got too heavy to take off. Seriously, it got heavier than expected, and the weather conditions weren't great either. So 19 passengers were forced to disembark. Wait, correction, they were strongly urged to volunteer to disembark. We'll tell you what happened. The EasyJet flight was supposed to take off from Lanzarote, a Spanish island. It was scheduled to take off at 9:45 p.m. But the weather conditions were poor, and apparently the aircraft was too heavy. So the aircrew came in for a big announcement. They asked passengers to volunteer to choose not to fly. Thankfully, they didn't push anyone out. That would have been a bit much. They just asked people to leave on their own, and at this point in time, people were exchanging awkward looks, and you can hear people murmur in the background. But then came the good part. The flight offered an incentive to the volunteers. That incentive was $557 per passenger who was willing not to fly out. And reportedly, you could immediately hear seatbelts click. Suddenly, people were willing to miss the flight, and 19 volunteers were marched off the plane. The flight got delayed for a while, but this incident was recorded on TikTok and it went viral. At least something good came out of it all. Of course, only second to the safety of the people, who, we hope, aren't conscious about their weight, else this heavy flight incident may have hit a nerve.